Well, hello and good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to Slow Motion Broadcasting, and welcome back to the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors. This is round number 4 of the season, coming to you today from Oulton Park. My name is Ron Maunz. Alongside me, working the comms and the cams this week, is Joshua Wilkie. Our UK tour continues with another fabulous racetrack. I absolutely adore Oulton Park. It's a tough track to be sure, but it's also brilliantly rewarding when you get it right. And with some good overtaking opportunities as well, I expect this race to be an absolute hoot. Well, the 1950s radio terminology out of the way, I want to bring you in here real quick, Josh. Now, you're usually one of the drivers in this series, serving in for Adam as he fulfills Uncle Sam's duty and helps out the people who are suffering from those horrific California wildfires. And before we go any further, we want to wish everyone well who may be affected by those at the present moment. But Josh, a little bit of a different perspective. This is the first time you've produced one of these shows since our old Apex days back well early on in 2024. So gonna be a little bit of a change for you, swapping out the driver's seat for a microphone. So what are your thoughts coming into this race?
Yeah, absolutely, Ron. Thanks a lot, and definitely like to parrot those sympathies as well for our friends dealing with the wildfires and so on right now as well, Ron. But yeah, it's actually pretty awesome to be in the booth here. It's been a long time since I've been in the booth for an FF race. Usually I'm out there racing with these guys, and looks like I'm going to have to skip this one at Oulton Park. Pretty technical track out here today as well. I have a feeling it's going to be, this is another one of those kind of old school kind of British sports car tracks that would probably never be built today and is perfect for cars like this. So it should be a pretty awesome race today, and there's definitely some unique challenges out there with Oulton Park, it being just undulating and bumpy, and there's some kind of increasing radius and decreasing radius corners out there. All kinds of interesting challenges for everybody to deal with today, Ron.
It is such a contrast from tracks that you see built nowadays where it feels like they're built with a protractor. A track like this, it looks like someone just cleared a small little path in the woods and just decides to drive his car around and say, like, you know what, screw it, this makes for a pretty good racetrack. I'll do an impromptu track guide with Ian Joyner, who we're running on board with. That was through turn number 1, Old Hall Corner, heading down the hill through Dentons of 2 into Cascades of turn number 3. Always nice to have some corner names. And even some of the straightaways are named, this being one of them. This is Lakeside, heading down this long flat out blast. This could be a good overtaking opportunity, but this is going to be a real challenge. This is Island Bend of turn number 4, creating a real tough braking zone. It's a Shell Oils corner, the hairpin of turn number 5. Little bit of banking to help you out, and little to no runoff area as well. That's going to make it super, super difficult. This would be one of the longest flat out blasts of this entire season. However, being interrupted by the 2 chicanes is the first one of Bryn's. Clicking it through, trying to avoid that inside tire barrier and make sure you don't pick up a slowdown going onto the hilltop straightaway. Then we have to deal with another chicane, the 2 chicanes on the back straightaway making their appearance for this race. This is Hislops of turn number 10, 11 into Knickerbrook of turn number 12. This corner is oh so tricky. I've seen a lot of drivers though go for some overtakes there in the past, even though you've got that barrier and the runoff area, which really does not help you at all. If you have some sort of mistake, it's still a good overtaking opportunity that we may see some drivers use. That was turns 13 and 14, the 2 left-handed kinks. Now into turn 15 of Druids. You can see the elevation change put on full display, heading through that corner under the Warwick Bridge now into what feels like the final real corner around this lap. This is Lodge Corner of turn number 16. More elevation change going uphill, then back downhill, now back uphill through Deer Leap of turn number 17. These drivers hoping not to get some error around that corner. However, they're hoping to set the best times that they can, and Joyner doing a very good job of that at the moment at 142.237. That is the provisional pulse it stands at the moment. But we've got some drivers looking to get very close to Malika Tompkins, right as I say that, jumping up to the pole.
Yeah, Tompkins with a flyer there to 142.166 on the board. That's going to be the time to beat here so far today. And, this is one of those tracks that just sort of begs you to go a little bit faster and faster and faster and faster into every corner until you finally kind of blow it here. And this last corner here is probably one of the ones that begs even harder for you to just kind of brake a bit later and a bit later and a bit later until you just brake a little bit too late, and that rise in that last corner will just kind of take a bit of the weight off the tires, and so easy to lose it there. I'm expecting, especially on our first couple laps, that pretty good chance somebody's going to spin in that last corner. I hate to call it like that this early, but I think it's pretty rare you get a race around here that somebody doesn't spin in that last corner, have a bit of an incident into one of the chicanes there, especially with all these drivers. 28 drivers on the track today here as we watch Antonio Reese in 4th place overall in Masters. Not doing too bad today, Ron.
Yeah, there's a pretty good lap time from Antonio Reese that he has on the board at the moment, a 142.910. Holds the pole at the moment in the Masters category. Meanwhile, in Spec 2, it's Boris Essman, who we should note is making this broadcast possible. We'd like to thank Boris for making sure this broadcast here on Slow Motion Broadcasting is being brought to you today. And also credit where credit's due to him to grab that Spec 2 pole as it stands at the moment. This man, though, Bill Walker, who are following right now in the 319 car, is currently slotted in P2, P14 overall, and practically nothing between those two racers in the Spec 2 category. And we got a little bit of time left as the checkered flag is now out in this qualifying session. We may not see a whole lot of shuffling around. I think we'll briefly touch on the championship point standings. Don't have a whole lot of time to gun through those, but I will certainly give it the old college trot because we've had some really intriguing class championship battles thus far this season. Looking in Spec 1, it's been pretty dominant from Ian Joyner. Already has 2 checkered flags this season, those coming at Silverstone and Snetterton. Seems to be a fan of the racetracks that start with S, but he's hoping to break that streak because based off that, he won't be winning until the Saxon Ring round later on this season. But he finds himself in the championship lead at 267 points. Kevin Adrian and Tortolo running at your top 3 in the Spec 1 category. Gonna move on now to Spec 2, and another storyline developing here is the good season thus far for Jeff Jacobson. Spec 2 has been rather hard to pin down, but Jacobson already has 2 victories this season thus far, coming at Silverstone and Brands Hatch respectively. Did not win at Snetterton 1 week ago. That was actually Andrew Love who took the win in that race, but he still leads a championship over Boris Essman, the German, in the 213. Jeff Wubker running at your top 3, since someone just went for a jump a little bit behind the other graphics that we've got at the moment. That'll be a good sign of things to come in the other race that we have coming up. And we'll move on to the Masters category. It's been dominated by Yurik Mani. He leads at over 100 points already, 105 in front of Antonio Reese, to be a bit more precise, with Stevie Ray rounding at your top 3 in the Masters category. So that's how your championship point situations stand at this present moment. But Josh, this qualifying session now officially brought to a close, and getting ready for what's going to be a really thrilling race in my book.
Yeah, absolutely. This place kind of always delivers on some pretty good action, Ron. It's a very hustly, very fast, very twisty, old school sports car track that's, it's going to be fighting the track as well as the drivers out there today. So we'll get that qualifying grid up, the race grid up for you here, Ron, and we can get this thing started.
We got a short pace lap, so I'm going to have to gun through this as quickly as I can. Adam Tompkins, my apologies, in the number 17 car. Got confused with Adam Thompson a couple of moments ago, but Tompkins going to be grabbing the pole, which I believe is his first race here from the Weekend Warriors. An incredible debut. Ian Joyner is very much so the championship favorite in the Spec 1 category, finds himself on that front row. Edward Buchanan, the Canadian, in the 5 car, they'll be starting this race in 3rd next to Antonio Reese, grabbing the Masters pole. Yurik Mani looking to try and go for his 4th win in 4 races. He'll be starting 2nd of the Masters racers, P5 overall. Tortolo, who has some experience running around this very racetrack, he'll be starting this race in 6th overall. Michael McConnell in 7th. Jason Green, off the back of a pretty dominant win in the Formula Vs yesterday here on SMB, will be starting in 8th. Rounding at your top 10, we are going to see the 9th place starter of Kevin Adrian and Daniel Tufts in the number 34 car. Had a rather controversial race 1 week ago, though we will not mention any further than that. Soren Garrett going to be starting this race in 11th in the 21 car. Jesus Rodriguez, a Formula V Weekend Warriors champion, going to be starting this Formula Ford race in 12th. Boris Essman, the sponsor of today's broadcast, going to be starting in lucky number P13. Bill Walker going to be starting in 14th. Those two making up the front 2 starters in the Spec 2 category. Alan DeGassis in 15th. Chris Murakami in 16th. Daniel Verone in P17. In P18 is going to be Chris Montgomery. Andrew Love and Edgar Sancinelli going to round at your top 20. Then we have Peter True in the 388 in 21st. Paul Jackson in 22nd. Jim Brewster in 23rd. Jeff Wubker in the 309 will be starting this race in the 24th starting spot. Guido Marzuki in 25th. Michael Nelson, the Dane, in 26th. Jeff Jacobson in 27th. Brad Cathcart in 28th. And Trent Kramer and Nick Tullo go round at your 30-car grid. We'll say Marzuki not going to grab the green as he's already gone down to pit lane, but still 29 starters. bracing for what's going to be a really compelling day, but also a troubling one, with plenty of opportunities at the stake.
Yeah, you said it, Ron, for sure. This place is not easy to drive around for 40 minutes. Not easy to take a pit stop at. Really, there's nothing easy about this track over 40 minutes at all. And it's really going to be, as we like to say there, good decision making and keeping that car clean here, especially in the first couple laps, is going to be key to this, getting a good start here and kind of getting that first lap under your belt. It being just so narrow and wild around here, you really, really have to make sure you tame that first couple laps.
40 minutes in front of these drivers and plenty of opportunities to make up some time and lose it as well. The green flag is out and the drivers are on their way. And it's a newcomer of Tompkins getting off to a flyer. He's going to be leading them comfortably, heading down into turn number 1. Look at some drivers shuffling already a little bit further in the back. It's a dream start from Edgar Buchanan. A terrible start, though. I'm trying to see where in the world is our championship leader of Ian Joyner. He's already down in 29th. What's going on involving Ian Joyner in the 8th? This has been a disaster start for him. I'm not even sure if he took to the grid. Either way, though, it's going to be Adam Tompkins in the number 17 leading them. Look at that from Antonio Reese in the 914. Finds himself in P2 overall, top running of the Masters racers. Buchanan slotted in 3rd. Lots of drivers already making up some moves. Primarily Edgar Sanchinelli, who's already made up 5 spots, running down in 15th.
Yeah, it looks like perhaps Ian Joyner did not take the start there, Ron. I think you are correct, and that's going to, promote a couple drivers up quickly. And, for us as the viewers here, we're going to hopefully get to see Ian Joyner try to make his way through the field right from the very back today. So that's the almost first to last challenge for Ian today.
Yeah, that is going to be a first to last challenge. It's a challenge that if any driver is going to attempt it, it's going to be Ian Joyner, but in a series as competitive as the Weekend Warriors, that's a foundation built on quicksand more than anything else. I believe Joyner has joined this race. See what I did there? There he is. He's heading his way through Knickerbrook of turn number 12 right now. Finds himself, still very early doors, mind you, but he finds himself in 28th. This is not the way that Ian Joyner probably wanted this race to go for him at all. But again, as I said, if any driver is going to attempt it, it's going to be a driver like Joyner. Already has 2 checkered flags this season and has a somewhat comfortable championship lead. But just because you've got a championship lead like this with 3 races on the board doesn't mean you want to do a first challenge 4 races in. But Joyner, maybe being the madman, who knows, maybe feeling confident about his chances around this racetrack, the UK-based racer running around a UK track. Let's see. Currently finds himself in 28th. Who knows where he's going to be by the halfway mark?
Yeah, absolutely, Ron. I would imagine he's going to make up some positions here, and probably rather quickly. But again, like we were saying, this place isn't super easy to pass at. There are some pretty good passing opportunities around here, but you really, really have to be confident and really make them work. And maybe even have, the guy that you're passing or the driver that you're passing there to actually kind of play ball with you a little bit sometimes as well. Oh, I missed something there. What'd you see, Ron?
I just saw a driver go off the track in a wild fashion coming out of Island Bend of turn number 4, hit that grass, and that is essentially a one-way trip into the outside wall. I think Edgar Sanchinelli may have gotten a piece of some drama. Let's take a look at this. You can see a driver going off the track already. That, I think, was Sanchinelli. And here's Paul Jackson. You can already see the front right tire broken off that race car. And who was that taking evasive action a little bit farther in the back? It was a big crash coming out of turn number 3. You can see Sanchinelli going off the circuit. Jackson with some major damage. That front right tire pops off the car as he gains some momentum. But Sanchinelli, I think, may have been the other car involved in that drama. Finds himself in P28 and going to be hopelessly out of contention in this race. I will say, though, Josh, are our graphics fooling us or what? Because it says that Ian Joyner's already 1 lap down.
Yeah, I believe that happens when you start from the pit lane, Ron. That actually, and don't quote me on this, but last week, or maybe it was the week before, I actually missed the start of one of the SRF races, and it did the same thing to me for the first little bit. It actually classified me as 1 lap down until later on in the race. So I'm sure that maybe just has something to do with our telemetry here, Ron.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, I'm looking through. It says he's back on the lead lap now. Only 17 seconds back of Adam Tompkins, who still continues to lead this race, dealing with some lap traffic heading down into turn at number 4. Not sure who that is. May, unless I'm very much mistaken, be Nelson in the 959 car, currently slotted in 28. he, I believe, unless there's some sort of break of the numbering conventions, would be a Masters racer, but either way, incredibly slowly heading down into turn number 4. There's a car that stopped. That was Edgar Sancinelli. I'm curious, Josh, if we can maybe take a look at some more replays of this drama to see what happened to Sancinelli. It was coming out of turn number 3 where a big stack up in 2, but I think there may have been some drama before then. There you can see Sancinelli running wide, heading out of turn number 16 of Lodge Corner. And looking through,
now, there was a bunch of reports here, so this may be a few. We're going to stick with it here for a moment, Ron. This is the replay of what happened, but Sancinelli had 3 or 4 or maybe even 5 off tracks here before this incident happened. So we're just going to stick with it for a minute here and see if we can't figure out exactly how he ended up way out in the grass there, and there we are.
And
oh my
locks
goodness.
It up and bang, nowhere to go. Paul Jackson, that was just tough luck for the both of them. Sancinelli getting a little bit of a wiggle on coming out of turn number 3, tried to lock it down, locked it up though, and spun it the complete opposite direction to avoid the tire barrier, but in doing so, poor Paul Jackson had nowhere to go to avoid that collision. Paul Jackson, man, if he didn't have bad luck, he'd have no luck at all. That was an incredibly unfortunate accident to befall both of those racers. And it's going to take them both out of contention, considering both of their wheels popped off like misshapen Legos. As we go back to another replay of Jackson in the 249 car, you can see Sancinelli go off, and Jackson through the smoke, bang, into the side, nowhere to go.
Yeah, that's one of those situations there where you're like, do I step on it as hard as I can and try to make it through this, or do I let off and kind of swerve to the side? And it looks like he sort of chose somewhere in between on that one and sort of paid for it. But that's the way it goes, unfortunately, sometimes. When there's an accident, you kind of have a 50-50 chance every once in a while, and unfortunately Paul got caught out on that one.
As that drama has gone on, let's go back to the battling up towards the front of the field. And it's been a pretty clean battle involving these racers. Antonio Reese running in the lead of the Masters category, second overall. Edward Buchanan, who I believe is a newcomer to this series this season, has run in some of the previous races we've had, but I don't believe he's run in the Weekend Warriors World before this season. But in the 5 car, currently finds himself in an overall podium spot, P2 of the Spec 1 racers. Jörg Mani in the 925, another Masters competitor looking for 4 victories in 4 races, which will be a brilliant start to this season. Not sure if we've ever had a clean sweep of a driver taking all of the checkered flags in their respective class in the history of the Weekend Warriors, but if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be Mani. He's contended for some overall wins in the past this season. However, not going to be in contention here, as Tompkins has just completely pulled away. Now 3.5 seconds in front of Antonio Reese, setting the fastest lap of the race in the process.
Yeah, he's definitely on a bit of a different track here today, it seems, almost, Ian Joyner. So it's going to be very hard, especially for someone, with some championship aspirations here of Ian Joyner, who is going to have a bit of a time catching Tompkins there today. I don't think that's going to happen. He's definitely sort of in rarefied air at the moment, and that'll be sending a bit of a signal to Ian Joyner as well for the coming rounds here, that, man, there's somebody else out there that has pace, pretty close to mine, if not more than mine, and he's not even really having a chance today to race with him and see what he's got. So that's kind of unfortunate, but we will see. I think Ian Joyner now is probably up to about 20th place or even 18th now. So since the last time I looked, he's actually made up 2 places in the last about 3 minutes. Looks like he's about to make up another one here on.
And I think he just got a move done on Jeb Wobker in the 309 car a couple of moments ago. So Joyner scything his way through the field may size up another overtake on Daniel Verone. One of the only few racers in this grid who is remaining in the same spot that they did at the start. But he can scratch that off the list as Verone drops down to B18. Joyner making his way up into 17th. Finds himself 19.5 seconds back of Adam Tompkins. I'm curious here, Josh. You can attest to this considering you are a driver in this series. Kind of thinking about how important the strategy is going to be for these drivers and how much it is going to shuffle it up as we look at Tompkins just running hot laps at this point, running in a race all of his own. I'm going to go back to the point that I was going to mention is Joyner now making his way up into P15. Just got moved on Trent Kramer and Andrew Love a couple of moments ago. I should say Kramer. It's a pretty good drive as it stands, currently making his way up 13 positions since the drop of the green flag. But getting back to the point that I have been trying to mention in reference to Joyner, He's making up the moves and he's scything his way through the field as we're going to take a look at a replay to see the moves that he put on Andrew Love. Love kind of pulling over to the side, and look, both of them really being like, no, we've got an alien coming up to us. No point holding up the UFO, otherwise we're going to get zapped by the laser.
Yeah, I would say that's definitely pretty good assumption as to what happened right there, Ron. I think they just kind of got out of the way. We see Ian coming. There is no point in fighting him. They're in their own little battle of their own, and anything that they kind of put up against him is potentially going to cost them a position in their race. So they're just going to let him by, and that's probably the smart thing to do here, as he's just making up position after position after position here on his way forward. And we're still looking at this top pack of the top drivers from about second back till about sixth or so, really darn close to each other here, and it looks like they're kind of starting to pack up as it looks like, I believe that's Jason Green kind of attaching himself to the back of this pack here, Ron.
Yeah, Green running in sixth as it stands at the moment. There you can see him right at the tail end of this train, slowly reeling in some drivers he certainly has some experience racing with. Him and Tortolo gave us some fantastic fights. Will give us some fantastic fights in the Formula V weekend. Warriors have given us 2 great races over the past 2 weeks. It's fine. That's a pretty good message to have on the cockpit of your race car, but Jason Green certainly reminding himself with that green dashboard as well, very on brand, that it's fine at the moment to not really push this issue, if I can spit my words out properly here. But Green running in sixth as it stands currently, slowly but surely reeling these racers in. I say slowly but surely reeling them in. I'm curious at this point, Josh, as whether or not Jason Green is going to be running a little bit farther in tow. He may yield the warning of what happened between Paul Jackson and Edgar Sancinelli a couple of months ago. My apologies. And look at these drivers battling in front and say, you know what, I don't want any parts of this battle. I just want to take it easy for now and maybe let these drivers have their own battle and go off in a cloud of dust and steam in the not too far off future.
Yeah, I'd say around a track like this, Ron, that's probably a pretty good thing to do for Jason Green here. He's close enough that the smallest mistake he can capitalize on, and not close enough that if there's a big wreck in front of him, he can get around it fairly easily. And I have a feeling that's kind of what he's doing. The first place is a little bit out of reach, I think, for most of the drivers today, unless, of course, we have an issue with Tompkins up front, which is totally doable with all this time left here. He could have an incident, but I don't think that too many people are fighting for first today, and I'm pretty sure we know Jason Green. He likes to kind of keep a cool head behind the wheel, and he's going to bide his time back there and probably monopolize on whatever he can going forward here. We don't see him get too in the mix, and he's kind of on brand for that at the moment.
Yeah, it's on brand for these racers to kind of hit this stage of the race that we now find ourselves in the midst of, the mid-20. As I like to refer to it as. This is when that pit window opens. It is usually when we get a good feeling as to who's going to be the drivers that are going to be there at the checkered flag, because you could show a boatload of pace, but if you end up backwards buried with your car about 5 feet deep into a tire barrier, that's not going to work out for you at all. So these racers getting to the point of the race where they need to take it a little bit easy, and let's see if they do. Following Daniel Tufts in the number 34 car, running in 9th at the moment, finding himself in a small little battle with himself, Soren Garrett, and Michael McConnell in the number 62 being the meat of that sandwich as it stands currently. They're running in a pack of their own, as you have to go back a second and a half to find Jesus Rodriguez, and have to go nearly 3 seconds farther up the road to get to the back of that battle that we are seeing involving Jason Green. So these three at this point in time, maybe taking it a bit more easy. I'll ask you this here real quick, Josh, and there's a little bit of a loaded question. Do you think these drivers stand a chance of closing up that gap to themselves in Green?
Yeah, I think, there's a pretty good chance that they could around here, especially just kind of with the attrition level. It only takes one mistake up front there, especially with a pack of 4 cars now in front of them. It's pretty likely that something's going to happen there, and they're going to get shuffled back a little bit. That being said, it looks like they're pretty racy here as well. We know, drivers like Daniel Tufts here and McConnell and Garrett's, they have speed. They're fast drivers out there. So if that's really any indication of just how fast Tompkins is today, being able to beat people like Tufts and Manny even and Green and stuff so handily is quite the feat there. So we should see how the rest of these guys are going to play out. And I think as long as these dudes don't get too caught up in their own battles, yeah, they have a chance to catch up to those guys up front, I think, Ron.
Certainly wouldn't rule it out at all, doubly so because we have those pit stops to talk about later on in this race. Usually series admin Stevie Ray would be the one that kind of is the trendsetter when it comes to drivers coming down pit lane, but he's been dealing with a litany of technical issues, so not going to be seeing him out on the racetrack this weekend, but fingers crossed we'll see him back on the racetrack in the not too far off future. Trent Kramer, though, maybe being that trendsetter as he's come into the pits in the number 20 car, start this race up towards the back, and as he said in a small little conversation with himself and Tam in the YouTube chat, first off, thank all of you for tuning into this broadcast here on SMB today. Trenton decide, I'm just going to start farther towards the back because being in the mid-pack come time for the start of a race like this, usually, I'm going to invoke a little bit of stick and ball sports terminology here, so please bear with me, folks, because when it comes to stick and ball sports, I have no idea what I'm talking about. But as someone who's lived in the city of Philadelphia for all 20 years that I've been on planet Earth, being one of these drivers in the mid-pack is like being a Minnesota Vikings fan leaving Lincoln Financial Field back in 2018 and having a bunch of Eagles fans throw a bunch of beer cans your way. It is not a good feeling at all, so I can't necessarily blame Trent for making that decision to hold off on qualifying. I mean, it's worked out for him well thus far as he scythed his way through the field. And even with that run through the pits, he's currently up. I'm trying to get the exact number right here. Still up 6 spots from where he started, so pretty damn impressive as we see a battle with Monty and Buchanan.
Yeah, it looks like Monty just made it up the inside of Buchanan there in that final corner. Really hard to get the brakes just right into that corner. And, if you can kind of wedge somebody a little bit going into it, it's a fairly good place to get a pass done, put some kind of intimidation on the person in front of you and outbrake them, as it looks actually like Tor got by Edward there as well, which is another thing that happens a lot of the time on tracks like this as well. You get passed by one driver and it just sort of cracks you a bit, and then the other guy's able to get a kind of opportunistic move done up the inside of Edward there as well. So yep, moving on here, it looks like Georg Manny is just, once again, I'm wondering if he's going to be able to catch up to Antonio Reese here and actually take the lead of the Masters race today, Ron. That would be a pretty great showing for Manny today.
Yeah, Monty at this point in time has that opportunity, but he needs to drive a very clean race at this point in time because that gap is slowly but surely building. Now about a second between those two at the front of the Masters category and occupying the final 2 spots on the overall podium. I will touch back on that in a little bit. Meanwhile, I would like to issue out a formal and sincere apology to Trent Kramer. The commentator's jinx has hit him. He is now out of the session, down in 28th. I think there may have been some sort of on-track drama, possibly an incident, maybe a spin, maybe some connection issues, who knows. Either way, that falling anvil, I have I've been trying to cancel that subscription for a while. I don't want those falling anvils delivered to iRacers anymore, now that I'm no longer behind the wheel. But let's see what happened to Trent Kramer in the 20 car.
Yeah, unfortunately, it looks like this is going to be just after he came out of the pit here, and it's into the final corner, just getting it a bit wrong there and off the road. So kind of inconclusive, to be honest there. I'm not really exactly sure what happened. Let's have a quick look on board, see if maybe we can see if there was some kind of hardware issue. No, I don't think so, Ron. I think it was just overcooked a little bit. And then, once he saw it going off the road, he's just like, yeah, I think I'm done for the day, and just put her in the wall. So unfortunately, that's the last we will see of Trenton Kramer today.
That's unfortunate. Fingers crossed that we'll see him in the Spec Racer Ford race coming up later on today here on Slow Motion Broadcasting. That's going to be another barn burner of a race running at Zolder, a track which is one that I hold a rather unpopular opinion about because I actually like that place, but more on that later on. For now, with the Formula Fords running here at Oulton Park, we've got a battle to talk about, and these are drivers battling for the Spec 2 lead. As it stands currently, Jeff Jacobson, who we're riding on board with, is following at the moment. Now we're riding on board with them.
Now we're on board.
Thank you very much, Josh, for making me seem like a bit less of an ass than I actually am. Running in 17th as it stands at the moment, third of the Spec 2 racers. However, the 2 drivers right in front of him are the 2 drivers right in front of him in the Spec 2 category. Daniel Verone leading it, Andrew Love in P2. You got Jacobson trying to contend for his 3rd victory in 4 races this season. Love, though, trying to go back-to-back. It would be an interesting trend if we see Love go back-to-back, as it would mean the 2 racers in the Spec 2 category thus far this season have won their races in back-to-back fashion, getting them in a pair, getting them like a pair of socks.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. If you can get 3, even better. But really impressed actually with Andrew Love's pace these days. Raced him for a couple seasons, and we were kind of side by side a little bit, and he was always kind of I'm not going to say easy to get by at all. He's always had some pace, but these days a lot harder to get by than he used to be. He has definitely found some pace out there. Perhaps maybe some just confidence behind the wheel in these cars, and I have a feeling that he is probably just kind of biding his time here with Daniel Veron. He's going to, as he pulls into the pit here. So first to blink in the S2 category here. This should kind of play out interesting. I'm actually a little bit surprised that he pulled in here and trying to get away from that fight. So maybe he does believe that he's got a little more pace here, Ron, and he just kind of needs to be set free.
Yeah, trying to go for that undercut. Let's see where Andrew Love exits out in terms of the pack that he'll find himself in. Is he going to be in clean air? Is he going to be all by his lonesome? Or is he going to have to deal with a whole lot of donkey excrement, for lack of a better term, when he comes out of pit lane? There's Love exiting now. It's that pit speed limit line right there, and now he can gas it and come out of pit lane. Looks like he's going to find himself inside of the top 20, albeit just barely. However, the driver right behind him is going to be Jeff Lubker, who just came into the pits himself. Andrew Love. I think this may have worked out very, very well for Love. Not going to have any sort of chaos and craziness to deal with. Just be able to put his nose to the grindstone and make up a whole lot of time as Verone and Jacobson may start to battle, as those two are only separated by about a second and a half.
Yeah, if they start fighting right now as well, we'll jump back over there. If they start fighting right now, that's only going to make it easier for the likes of Andrew Love there to get by them. And I think you might be right, Ron. I think he probably blinked at just the right time here, as it looks like they're kind of getting caught up potentially maybe in some, not sure if this is lap traffic, but they've definitely been split up here. There is a gap in between them and a car between them now, between Jeff and between Daniel Veron. So yeah, it looks like Andrew Love really did make the right decision to jump into the pit when he did. We'll have to keep an eye on that and see if he can't undercut them as well, Ron.
And as one class race battle begins to heat up, one is definitely hot at the moment. The Masters battle, I was expecting it to be cooled off, as Antonio Reese, last time we looked at the front, was about a second in front of Jorg Monty. Monty's now gotten the move done on him to slip his way up into the lead. So Monty putting on a really good drive and siding his way. That gap was big. I mean, a second gap gets to the point where he loses the draft and begins to drop back like a rock. But Monty was not only able to keep toe with Antonio Reese, but was able to go toe for toe with him and get a move done. There you go. Pretty textbook stuff from Jorg Monty, heading down into the final real corner of turn number 16, Lodge corner, to give the name of it. But Jorg Monty in the 925. Well done, Jorg. This, if he can hold on in the final 18 minutes of this race, it'll be his 4th Masters checkered flag this season, and he'll be on track for a really good season here to kick off 2025.
Yeah, absolutely. He is just kind of class of the field this year for sure, at least in the Masters class here. And I'm a little bit surprised actually how Antonio seemed to just kind of let him by. And I've raced Antonio many times toe to toe. He is a fast driver, and he doesn't generally give you an inch, and he just kind of let Monty by right there. So I'm assuming what's happening here with Antonio is he knows that Monty is a pretty formidable competitor. They are in the same class, and he wants to fight another day. So he sees that move coming, kind of just gets out of the way and goes, all right, I'm going to see if I can't find the pace here. They are teammates, and it looks like they may be coming across the line 1-2 here, at least in the Masters class. But I'm going to be, pretty interesting to see if Antonio decides to take another bite at Monty here, especially now that they're teammates.
Yeah, let's see how these two are going to begin to battle. We've kind of asked Jorg Monty in the past this season about that dynamic between himself and Antonio Reese. These two have been just the guys in the Masters category for just about as long as I've been doing Weekend Warriors broadcast, which dates all the way back to March of 2023. But these two have always been battling for those Masters wins and those Masters championship. Monty, as I've said many times throughout this broadcast, already has 3 thus far this season. Reese looking for his first. So let's see if we'll have another swapperoo between those two racers. Meanwhile, that battle that I figured may be able to happen, I think is going to start to happen, as Daniel Verone and Jeff Jacobson, now covered by about a half a second, heading their way off through the first chicane of Britons. this could be it, and this could be really good for Andrew Love, still running in 20th, and slowly but surely reeling in Bill Walker, who's running 3rd at the moment of the Spec 2 racers. Those two have come down pit lane. These two, on the other hand, have not. Jacobson already has 2 checkered flags this season. Verone has not gotten a checkered flag, although he certainly has gone close. Of the drivers running in the Spec 2 category, I feel like the ones who are going to take the lion's share of victories this season, I'll say it right off the bat, knowing fully well this could age like milk in the Nevada sun, would probably be Daniel Verone, Jeff Jacobson, and Andrew Love. Verone, I'm really shocked he hasn't grabbed the victory this season, as Jason Green making that run into the pits.
Yeah, we've got another blinker here with the pits. Jason Green probably just trying to kind of, free himself from the traffic and so on in front of him here and see if he can't get some pace. We know Jason Green has some pace, and I'm pretty sure he was kind of just hanging out, waiting around behind those guys for now, just to kind of see what plays out here and see if he can't monopolize on it. And we'll have to see kind of what the pit strategy pans out to here as he leaves the pit. Looks like he's got some fairly free air to play in here as well, Ron.
And actually, one really intriguing thing to come out of that run through the pits for Jason Green is the fact he's built up a sizable cushion between himself and Tortolo in the number 27 car. Tolo was one of the first drivers to come down pit lane. He came into the pits, I would say, probably about 4 or 5 laps ago when we start to see that Monty and recent battle really heat up. But look at that gap between those two. I mean, in terms of the time spent down in the pits, Jason Green only spending 0.6 of a second less, but that gap has ballooned between the two of them. So Jason Green maybe just exercising that patience and being the, sounds bad to say this, being the elder statesman, being the Weekend Warriors racing coach extraordinaire on the Racing Line podcast, which you can catch every single Tuesday night over on the Racing Line YouTube channel. But I think Jason Green may have played this strategy to absolute perfection. I'm really intrigued to see how it's going to shake out once we see those drivers up towards the front come down pit lane, like Edward Buchanan.
There's a good little segue for you. Edward dipping into the pits here. It looks like, he's been under pressure kind of the entire race here, actually holding off pretty well so far. And it looks like he's going to blink in the pit here to see how long he actually sits in the pit for as Kevin Adrian comes in, another driver that we know has a ton of pace, a little bit out of place today, actually. I'm not sure if maybe this is a track that just doesn't jive with Kevin, but he's a formidable driver out there and competitor as well. I've diced it up with him many times. Very clean driver, very fast, and extremely good in the rain.
We got a big talent pool of drivers in this series. I gotta say, a big talent pool of pit lane crews. Look at Daniel Verone's stop there at what has to be like a 30-degree angle. His pit crew's still working very valiant to get that out there. I'm curious how he's going to be able to pull off this move. The driver from Pennsylvania, and scrapes it. There we go, into the bricks, and having a reverse. This is going to be a heartbreaking mistake for Verone in that 272 car, and I think he nearly just stalled it trying to get back rolling very, very slowly, mind you. And yeah, that was, I could just tell from the sideways angle that he was on. Despite being from Pennsylvania, had to pull off the New Jersey Turnpike pending 978-point turn to get that thing going back in the right direction, as Michael Nelson, the Dane in the 959 car, who we saw earlier on in the race had some difficulties, currently finding himself in 27th. The last of the cars still out there on the racetrack. Just got overtaken by Paul Jackson, who has rejoined the race, surprisingly so, even with that major damage. So the iRacing mechanic Red Bull really getting used by some of these drivers.
Yeah, absolutely, and that was pretty unfortunate in the pit. I tried to go back there and see how he ended up like that. I would imagine he just came in a bit quick, hit the brakes, and kind of looped it into the wall. And once you're kind of stuck up against the wall, all you really can do is throw it in reverse and try to back out of it. But that is going to seal the deal here for Andrew Love, at least with the Daniel Verone Andrew Love question. Anyway, it looks like Andrew Love's won out on that one by quite a bit, just because of that mess up in the pit lane. We mentioned many times before, Ron, seems to be kind of one of the sort of benign things here, going into the pit, as we see a bunch of people blinking here. Soren, Thor, Daniel Tufts, everybody blinking in the pit right now and kind of coming out all together in some fairly clear air here, so nobody looks like they have changed any positions there because of the pit. But back to the point, it's just so easy to mess up a pit stop sometimes, Ron. It seems easy, but it's really not at the end of the day.
So many drivers coming down pit lane a couple of moments ago and making that blink call to come into the pits. You gotta wonder as to whether or not they just got back from the optometrist. Daniel Tufts, who are following right now, was one of those racers in the number 34 car. He was joined by a lot of racers. Jorg Monty was one of them coming down pit lane from the lead in the Masters category. Tortolo and Jason Green already came into the pits before Soren Garrett just came down pit lane a couple of moments beforehand. As it stands, the drivers running in the top 5, the 3 yet to come into the pits are going to be Chris Murakami, who has now taken P2 of the Masters racers. We can actually make that only 2 left in the top 5 as Adam Tompkins from the lead of this race, the dominant lead of this race, mind you, has now made that decision to come back into pit lane, actually just come down pit lane, period, as Daniel Verone has made that call to come back. Meanwhile, from the lead of the Masters category in P2 overall, Antonio Reese also joining the at one point race leader of Tompkins, Joyner, making his way up to 3rd. He's now coming into the pit, so he started this race from pit lane, which explains why it's marked that he already spent 1.9 seconds in the stall earlier on. Let's see how it works out for him. Tompkins already pulling away, so it's not going to be a last to first challenge that's successful for Ian Joyner. Tompkins, though, that's actually a rather long pit stop, 42.3 seconds. So Tompkins very lucky that he built up that gap in the early stages. Otherwise, he'd find himself in a world of hurt as Antonio Reese gonna get swallowed up by the field on pit exit.
Yeah, unfortunately, it looks like that one didn't quite work out for Antonio. We know, him and Jorg were pretty much nose to tail there before this round of pit stops, and now he's got 2 cars in between them. So that may seal the deal for Antonio and Jorg battle here, as well as we see, some people really benefiting from this pit stop cycle here, Ron. And a bunch of people diving in all at once there. Adam Tompkins just absolutely class of the field at the moment.
Yeah, even with that very long pit stop compared to some of his competitors, Tompkins still leading this race in that number 17 car. I'll have to get positive word as to whether or not this is his Weekend Warriors debut, but if it is, the driver of the number 17 car has been brilliantly quick in his series debut. That number 17 car, the blue 17, has made some of his competitors feel blue all throughout this race because he is just entirely checked out. Even a 20-second even stop, that's not going to supersede him at all. Jorg Monty, though, currently leading in the Masters category. It's been a pretty good race for Jorg. Now one driver that stands in the way between himself and a runner-up spot overall. It's going to be this man, Jason Green, in the 160 car. Pulled off that early pit call, and it worked out really well for him. He jumped in front of Tortola, my apologies, jumped in front of Antonio Reese and Soren Garrett. He was the tail car of that pack that we saw earlier on. The pack is very much so broken up, but in terms of the drivers who were in the midst of that battle, Jason Green may end this race being the Pied Piper of it. That'd be a really good result and nice turn of fortune for the driver of the 160 car.
Yeah, absolutely. Jason Green is always there, no matter what. Even, sometimes not being spoken about at all and having, not a whole lot of flashy stuff or whatever is how you win championships. And Jason Green is a championship winner. He's won multiple championships, and I believe, with the kind of style and the way he races there is the reason why. He's pretty cool-headed. He, kind of plans his season out, it almost seems like it. He knows, I'm going into this race. This is kind of what I can expect. And, when things don't go his way, he's very good at sort of bouncing back and being like, all right, it's fine, as he sees, as we see, of course, on his dashboard here. And that's kind of where that comes from. Pretty good little slogan there for him. And that's sort of the way he drives as well. If something happens, it's like, all right, well, I guess I'll just try to mitigate and do the best I can here, get as many points as I can, not get too angry about it. And that's the way it works. Of course, we always do get a little bit angry, and I'm pretty sure I've had him angry at me once or twice as well. But that's racing. And, other than that, I think it looks like he's probably a pretty good championship contender here for this season, even with the likes of Adam Tompkins and stuff like that out there as well, just because of his consistency, Ron.
And Jason Green is a militarily consistent driver because he is just brilliantly quick, race in and race out. Entered this race 5th in the championship and not terribly far back of Michael McConnell, who entered this race in 4th. So this would be a really good points day for Jason Green if he can get that move done on Jorg Monty. Either way, though, it's going to be a really good points day for him. Go back to McConnell running down in 8th. Go back to Joyner, who's now broken his way into the top 10 and may be able to get some moves done between now and the checkered checkered flag. I'm curious if we can jump to him, Josh. Running in that number 8 car in P10. He is very close to the back of Jesus Rodriguez, who's not too far off the back of McConnell. You only have to go a second farther up the road to find Daniel Tufts. So this race, as much as it was down for the count, shall we say, starting this race down pit lane, Joyner, he has proven in this race that he is a driver who we seriously have to consider as the championship favorite, because this is a champion drive, keeping a calm, cool, and collected head on his shoulders, and even going a little bit sideways through turn number 4, as he may have just done a couple of moments ago, that curve back on the inside, running in 10th at the moment. And he may be able to break his way up into 8th between now and the checkered flag. Who knows? He may be able to reel in Tufts to break his way up into 7th.
Yeah, I wouldn't totally count that out at all, Ron. He's made up a ton of positions today, only down about 7 or 8 positions from where he started. Pretty amazing, from 20th all the way back, or sorry, from 30th-ish. Or I believe he was close to 30th, maybe 27th, with a couple people who didn't start there, but nonetheless, quite the meteoric jump here from the back to the front in 40 minutes. Not bad at all, even with an extra pit stop and stuff there too. Basically in the beginning, starting from the rear, is pretty impressive stuff, Ron, and that's going to send a message out front as well to the rest of the drivers, even if they do finish in front of him, that he's able to, looks like he's going to make up a couple more positions here. Going to try to just hold off into the last corner. Very difficult corner to get right here, as you can see. He's really got the number of that corner there, really putting the power down where it needs to be put down, and he's putting the pressure on Ron. He doesn't care at all what's going on here. He wants those points.
Yeah, trying to make hay while the sun is shining, taking advantage of a slightly frazzled Michael McConnell and Jesus Rodriguez, who nearly came to blows. Coming out of turn number 16 a couple of moments ago, Joyner getting that move done to slip his way up into 9th. Now he has one more move to get done, and that will be on Jesus Rodriguez. You have to go 1.5 seconds farther up the road to find Daniel Tufts, and with only 4.5 minutes, less than that now, in fact, left on the clock, I have a feeling that is not going to be enough time for Joyner to break his way up into 7th. I have no idea who it was a little bit further in the back, though. I just saw him or her sideways, slideways, coming out of turn number 3. A beautiful drift from a driver further in the back, a shot, which actually reminds me of a point that I want to raise in terms of another class battle. Actually, I'll hold off on that point in a couple of moments, as Joyner getting a good run coming out of the Bryn chicane, now down the hill through the hilltop straightaway into Hislops. Let's see, Joyner, will he get that move done? Yes, he will. Nearly coming to blows with that inside barrier, but not coming to blows with his competitors, getting the slick move done to slip his way up into 8th. And now the point that I was going to raise, which we may have to jump to, is that Spec 2 battle. As much as things may be set in stone pretty much in Masters and Spec 1, Spec 2 has been a really interesting class to keep our eyes on all throughout this race. We are thinking that Andrew Love was just going to grab the lead and disappear with it, essentially, considering the pit strategy call that he had. However, Jeff Jacobson, who came into the pits not terribly long ago in the 240 car, has put on a really good hold-off performance. I'm looking through at the time that he spent down pit lane compared to Andrew Love is a little under it, but still about 4 seconds of difference between those two drivers and the time they spent just in their pit box alone, and it was just about the same gap in terms of the amount of time they spent down pit lane. So this is actually looking like it may come the way of Jeff Jacobson, and that gap is slowly ballooning out between those two, now over about 1.7 seconds between the two at the front, the Spec 2 category, with only a couple laps left to go. Jeff Jacobson may be on track for yet another victory this season, which would be oh so impressive, considering the fact we pretty much had him counted out.
Yeah, absolutely, Ron. I'm just looking at the telemetry there, a minute ago before you mentioned it. I'm like, oh, Jeff Jacobson's in front of Andrew. I wonder where that happened. And there's no telemetry of him actually passing him. So, yeah, it definitely happened in the pit lane. And it looks like, once again, those pit stops just rearing their head every once in a while and kind of deciding the end of the race here for Andrew Love. After all of that work, it looked like he was going to take it pretty handily, but one little mistake in the pit lane, or underfueled, or perhaps overfueled the car a little bit, or maybe took a tire, or whatever it might be, some sort of a mistake there, ends up putting him back into second and giving Jeff Jacobson a much-needed points gap here. That he's taken a few wins this year, so he's only going to be extending that gap. Andrew needs to get these things under control here so he can have a chance.
Yeah, Andrew Love and Jeff Jacobson, both very talented racers in the Weekend Warriors world, and we'll be very much so looking forward to the battle that they'll be having for the championship all throughout this season. I believe the white flag's in the air for Tompkins. He's on track for a pretty dominating victory as we look at some side-by-side racing involving Antonio Reese and Soren Garrett, but going a little bit farther back behind these racers, as never mind, look at that. Garrett's fighting back on the inside line, heading down the hill, all through turn number 2, now through 3, and look at Tortolo in the number 27 car going to get involved in this fight. Daniel Tufts had an off-track moment. He's dropped down to 11th as he and Joyner has made his way up into 7th, but look at this side-by-side racing through Island Bend of 4. Look at this, Garrett playing the dangerous game around the outside through that corner, just holding off and trying to withstand that challenge from Antonio Reese. Oh, so impressive the fact he was able to keep that car going in a straight line and on the racetrack. That was brilliantly clean stuff between those racers. Heading through the final chicane for the final time is Adam Tompkins, though, in that number 17 car, about to dispatch with the lap car of Paul Jackson, who's had a very up and down race. Tompkins, though, the only ups and downs that he's really had have just been the ups and the downs and the revs of his car and the ups and the downs around this racetrack. It's been a smooth ride for Tompkins. I'm saying this hoping that I don't jinx him. He only has one more corner left to go around this track, and the checkered flag is going to be his, setting the fifth lap of the race by a pretty significant margin as well. This has been a brilliant race for Adam Tompkins, his first race from the season, and it's going to be his first checkered flag from the season in the process. Adam Tompkins in the number 17 car going to take your checkered flag here at Oulton Park. Your winner in the Spec 1 category. Jörg Monito about to cross the line, withstanding that challenge from Jason Green, going to win it in the Masters category. Those two finishing P2 and P3 overall. And we got a fight to the line between Reese, Garrett, and Tullo. They're going to remain line astern. Reese in 4th, Garrett in 5th. Tortolo finishes in P6. Joyner going to eventually take the checkered flag in P7, and now going back to Jeff Jacobson in the 240 car. This is a really impressive performance from Jacobson. Kicked it off with 2 straight wins. Did not win last time out at Snetterton, but he's going to prove himself as a championship contender to keep our eyes on for all throughout Season 1 of 2025, as Jeff Jacobson going to take his 3rd Spec 2 checkered flag of this season. 3 for 4. It's not a perfect record, but it's still going to be a really good record to have at the opening point of this season. Andrew Love finishes in P17 in the P17 overall, P2 of the Spec 2 racers, and Bill Walker going to finish in 3rd, running at your Spec 2 podium. But Josh, that was a pretty brilliant race. It wasn't the bare knuckle fist fight that we occasionally see in the Weekend Warriors world. That was more of a methodical approach, but that race was still incredibly entertaining.
Yeah, absolutely, Ron. Great track. Awesome car track combo, in my opinion. Really, really fun combo to drive. And yeah, we got some really good action out there as well today. Adam Tompkins definitely showing kind of the pace of the field there for sure. We'll have to see if Ian Joyner has anything for him in the coming weeks here. We didn't really get a chance to see them go wheel to wheel, but obviously an amazing showing from him as well, to make up so many positions from starting in the pit lane there with that unfortunate start. I would imagine that was a mistake, and it looks like maybe we're setting up some kind of a jump or something here, Ron. What do you think?
Oh boy, right as I go out to something else, here we go. Jason Green going for the leap over the hill, and all of them are ballparking, and there we go. Oh boy.
I don't think I can even get a shot of that, unfortunately. Yeah, they're gone.
I think I've made this joke a couple of times in the past on some of the broadcasts here on SMB, but only on slow motion broadcasting and only covering the Weekend Warriors series do our helicopters and blimps need insurance in order to protect themselves from race car impacts. But that was, oh boy, I remember a couple of seasons ago Jason Green doing a ridiculous jump attempt heading through that very same section around this very racetrack in the rain, and it was a rather different feeling jump when he did that, but nevertheless it is always very goofy looking at a race car flying like a bird in the sky over that small little crest. And Jason Green, credit's due to you, man. Always getting a laugh out of me with some of the ridiculous aerial acrobatics that these drivers attempt at the end of these races. But nevertheless, I think we'll be able to get the results in here and go through the end results from what was a very exciting fourth race of this season. It's Adam Tompkins in the number 17 car, who I believe, I will say this knowing fully well, I may be fact-checked come time for the start of the Spec Racer Ford broadcast later on today, but Tompkins, who I believe is making his Weekend Warriors debut, making one heck of a debut in the process, winning over York Monty by 11.9 seconds. That is an absurd gap to the winner in the Masters category. Jason Green going to finish in third. Antonio Reese ends up in fourth. Soren Garrett's in P5. Tortolo going to finish this race in sixth. Ian Joyner with a mighty recovery driving the number 8 car, going to finish not so fittingly in seventh. Finishing this race in eighth is going to be Jesus Rodriguez, Michael McConnell in ninth, and Edward Buchanan going to round out your top 10.
Yeah, and then we have Daniel Tufts in P11. Oh, I zipped her forward a little too quick there. Let's see if we can't get 12.
WD-40, Josh.
Yeah, I'm controlling it. You'd think that I'd have the timing right. But Kevin Adrian in 12th place. 13th in Masters class, Alan DeGassis. Chris Murakami down there in 14th place. Jeff Jacobson bringing home the win in the S2 class, just in front of Andrew Love. Bill Walker in 17th. Jim Brewster in 18th, and then moving on to 19th, Jeff Wabaker in 19th, Brad Cathcart in 20th, Peter True unfortunately getting, actually it was Peter Jackson who got crashed out there, wasn't almost getting the two Peters mixed up there in 21st. 22nd is Chris Montgomery. Paul Jackson is what I mean to say, not Peter, getting falling anvil there in the front wheel, ripped off his car pretty early in the race, unfortunately. Guido Marzucci as well had an incident that we were unable to have a look at there, but he also had a falling anvil on him during this race as well. Daniel Veron in 25th, Boris Essman in 26th, Michael Nelson in 27th, Trenton Kramer in 28th, another falling anvil, unfortunately. Edgar Sanchinelli in 29th, and Nick Tullo in 30th, Ron.
And that will round out your results from a really intriguing fourth race of the season. Chock full of battles, chock full of interesting storylines, and some really deserving winners at the end of it. I will say Adam Tompkins, the Spec 1 winner, not joining us in the commentary booth. I looked through. Tompkins is very much so a newcomer in the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors scene, so I believe, unless I am very much mistaken and being played like a fiddle, it is his series debut, and hopefully we'll be able to have a chat with him if he has another performance like that. I would love to have a chat with him and see what sort of nitrous he has in his race cars. But I've got some time to have a chat with some of these racers, and I think the one that I will be dragging into the commentary booth here to have a quick little chat with is going to be one of the best drivers from this season, and certainly the best in the Spec 2 category, Jeff Jacobson, now joining us in the commentary booth. And now, Jeff, another win from this season, but it did not look like an easy route to get there with all the strategy craziness to deal with all throughout this race, but still taking the checkered flag of the Spec 2 drivers. Talk us through the race that we just saw here at Oulton Park.
Yeah, when I struggled hardcore at this track. I could not get a qualifying, so when I started 27th, I thought I was going to be in for a real challenge. But yeah, I just try to knock out laps and stay clean.
Well, it looked like a pretty good strategy for you, making it to the checkered flag and putting yourself in a fantastic spot to have that strategy battle with yourself and Andrew Love, you two being the only ones to take a checkered flag thus far this season in the Spec 2 category. So I want to ask you about that and the strategy gamesmanship that went on between you two all throughout this race.
I think just early on, I was just doing the best I could to stay with him. And then when he pitted, I knew I had to try to push to turn out my best laps, and I was pretty happy when I came out of the pits, I was still ahead of him. So that was really just my only goal.
Well, I mean, it's a pretty good goal to try and achieve. It worked out very, very well for you, taking your third Spec 2 checkered flag of this season. We're going to continue on the UK tour. It feels like we've been stuck in the UK for a vast majority of the races thus far this season, and going to a rather fun one of Thruxton in 1 week's time. So what are your thoughts heading into that race?
I have no experience racing there. I struggled when we did the week 13 runoffs, so I don't know. Hoping for the best. It's a really fast track.
I will say, from my experience, one of my favorite new combinations on iRacing is running the old Dallara F3 car around that track. It is a draft fest, but in these Formula Fords, it's just also going to be a really good racing. I'm mentally preparing myself for the possibility of two cars going side by side all throughout the entirety of a lap of Thruxton. So who knows, we may be able to see it in 1 week's time. You'll be contending for your 4th checkered flag in 5 races this season, but 3 for 4 is certainly not bad at all to kick this season off for you, Jeff. And I'll ask you one quick question before we wrap things up, and part of me is bracing myself for the same answer that he gave Adam last week. Is there anyone you want to give a thanks to or shout out?
Well, I wasn't expected to be called out last week, so this week we're going to give a shout out to my 2 cats, Kira and Leo, for living their best cat life, and everyone in the league for making this so much fun to race.
Beautiful. Thank you very much, Jeff, for joining us in the commentary booth, and well done on taking the Spec 2 victory.
Yes, thank you very much.
And that right there was Jeff Jacobs, and a very proud cat owner and the winner of the Spec 2 category here at Oulton Park today. And Josh, we got some more drivers waiting in the interview waiting area, and I think I'll bring in a driver who you've certainly had some chats with in the past, that being Jason Green. You want to have a chat with him?
Yeah, sure. Why not? Hey Jason, pretty solid race out there today. Fairly uneventful for yourself, but it looks like holding in there some consistency and just kind of letting some things happen in front of you there, you're able to come out with a pretty simple 3rd place. How'd you see it from your point of view?
Oh, I'm ecstatic with the 3rd there. I definitely didn't deserve it on pace. Until before the pit stops, I was just hyped to be able to hang with Jurg, Antonio, Thor, Ed. And everybody. So I was happy with finishing in 6th. Did the early stop. Managed to come out in Monty's draft, and Monty just pretty much towed me to P3. There was no way I was hanging on to that without his draft. So huge thanks to Monty. I did my best to try to get past him on the last lap, but I just didn't have the pace to get a run on him.
Yeah, Monty definitely showing some pace in the FFs here this season for sure. And we were kind of commenting on that as well, that it looked like you blinked a little bit early in the pit, probably just to get yourself some free air there. Was that what you were thinking, or did you actually think, I'm going to get in behind Monty here if I go in right now and get a draft, or was that just kind of more looking for some free air?
Yeah, it was more free air. I didn't think there was any possibility of me being close to Monty or Antonio after the pits. So I think Ed in front of me was struggling a little bit, or Soren behind us was way faster. So I didn't really want to battle with them right before the pits or pit with them. So I just decided to pit early and, see how it worked out. And got lucky.
Excellent. Yeah, well, nice consistent race out there today. There was definitely a bit of attrition and some kind of pit stop fumbles here and there, but I believe next week we are headed to Thruxton. I know not too many of us have any practice around there. I know I have 0 because I missed our special event there a few weeks back. I think you had a couple laps around there. What do you think of that track? Is that going to be a good one for these cars? You looking forward to that one or not?
Yeah, in the Formula Fords, I think it's a good. It could be a good fit, just because they're faster than the SRFs even. So, I think most of the corners that are like flat out, for instance, in the V's, will not be flat out in the Formula Fords. So, it will be super high speed, super technical, and hopefully will give us some good racing.
Interesting. Well, I think I will be joining you guys back behind the wheel next weekend and give Thruxton a try, so I'm pretty excited to try that out. But excellent race today, Jason, and we'll see you in the SRFs later. Is there anybody you'd like to thank?
Thanks to Monty, really, for telling me to be 3. I couldn't have done it without him.
Right on, Jason. Thanks a lot, and we'll catch you later this afternoon in the SRFs.
Yeah, thanks, Josh.
No problem.
And that right there was Jason Green joining us in the commentary booth and giving a good insight as to how the next race of this season is going to be at Thruxton. Holy cow, that race is going to be an absolute riot. We got Jurg Monty waiting in the interview waiting area, and I'll drag him in for a quick little chat before we wrap things up from this broadcast.
Yeah,
Jurg
sure.
Monty, or as I should probably call him, the Broom Man, taking the sweep of the races thus far. Jurg, how does it feel to go 4 for 4 to kick this season off?
Fantastic. Like I mentioned last week, it's my favorite track. And I think I did not make many mistakes except poorly qualifying. But anyway, I tried everything the first few laps to pass Edward and then Antonio. It was simply not possible at the beginning. Then Edward made a mistake. I tried to attack him. It went well. No, the first time it didn't went well, but the second one was good. And after that, I was just doing one quali lap after the other one, and that's where I caught Antonio again. But he let me by because he said I was quicker. I thought I was asking, why do you let me by? And yeah, so we can pull away. And then he went in for a lap earlier. No, actually, yeah, he went in a lap earlier on fuel, and I afterwards, and then he had not a good pit stop, and that's why I went a bit further away from him. But it was a sweating race, really. I feel like I took a shower already, but lucky-wise nobody else is in that room, so you can't smell it. So yeah, it was tough. And congrats to Adam. It's just another freaking English fast guy.
I was just going to note that you're possibly smelling like the average smell on a City of Philadelphia public bus, but I will leave that at that and ask you about Thruxton in 1 week's time for the next race of this season. Bit of a different track compared to this one, and certainly a hell of a lot faster. So what are your thoughts heading into that race in 1 week's time? I
really don't know yet. I drove the last time with the spec the first time there. I did not like it that much because it's almost an oval. I don't know yet. Let's see. I have no thoughts about that Thruxton track at the moment, so I let me surprise. I don't know yet.
We're feeling the neutral response as it stands at the moment. You have no strong feelings one way or the other. But Jörg, thank you very much for joining us in the commentary booth, and well done on your 4th checkered flag in 4 races thus far this season. Well done. And before we let you go, I will say real quick, after what happened last week, Jeff Jacobson did give a shout out to his cats. So I will ask you if there's anyone you want to give a thanks to or shout out.
Yeah, of course, to everybody in the league and all the races. It was they're getting tougher and tougher to beat, and that makes a lot of fun. Even the last few laps with Jason, they're making so much of fun. And that was, I think the last few laps of mine was one of my best laps. And thank you to all and to you guys for broadcasting. Thank you.
And thank you very much, Jörg, for joining us in the commentary booth. And well done on 4 straight victories to kick the season off. Well done, man, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks a lot, guys, and see you next time.
And that right there was Jörg Mani. We'll be seeing him next time and seeing him later on today for the spec race forwards. But one driver who we saw scythe their way through the field was Ian Joyner. Josh, would you like to have a chat with the driver who was the hard charger by far throughout this race?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll bring him into the booth here. Hey Ian, how's it going out there today? It looks like you ended up starting from the pit lane. Now, was that because of a hardware failure? Did you have a quick bathroom break? What happened there?
I think it was an eyesight failure. I looked at the time to go, thought I had 50 seconds, and then looked a little bit later and it was just 0. So I don't know, I think I must have misread it. Yeah, so it wasn't on purpose, but yeah, just a mistake, I think. I even went back and watched the replay to make sure the start hadn't been cut short. Everyone was sat there 2 minutes, so it was all on my eyes, I think. Yeah, so it would have been fun to race Adam, I think, at the front, but it was fun driving through as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Can always be a little bit fun to start from the back a little bit and make your way through the field, which you did quite handily there as well. And we were mentioning during that, it is kind of unfortunate actually that I believe it was Adam Tompkins' first round today with the WW there. We're not sure if that's a for sure, but I'm pretty sure it might have been his first race today. And we kind of got robbed of being able to see you guys battle it out at the front and see what kind of pace you have versus each other. So it'll be kind of interesting next week at Thruxton to see how that plays out. Is that, if you had some time to practice around Thruxton, is that one of your favorite tracks? Not so much, or what's the deal there?
Yeah, not so much. Don't even own it yet, and no, so never been there. I think I might have driven it on Tonka touring cars in the 90s, but definitely not one I'm familiar with. I'll try and get on top of that this week though. So yeah, look, it'd be nice to do a new one. Nice to see the UK tracks all making their way on there. So yeah, definitely a bit of learning to do, but but it should be fun. Be nice if Adam's out again. I've seen him a few times in the officials. Very rapid. Would have been fun.
Excellent. Well, we're definitely looking forward to that one. I think these cars are going to be pretty quick around there, and we did have a race in the SRFs, but I think these are going to race a little bit different than the SRFs did around there, Ian.
Wow.
But great showing today, getting through the field as handily as you did, and nice and clean and stuff as well. So is there anybody you'd like to thank out there before we let you go?
Yeah, so the league, everyone in the league as well. Again, it was driving through so close to everyone like that. It's always nice to have just lots of respectful drivers. So thank you to those. Thanks to Stevie. Thanks to you guys. Thanks to my dad as well. I think he's at home watching.
Excellent. Always nice to have the family watching there, and we will see you next week, and hopefully we don't miss the timer. I did last week too. It happens to all of us. Happens to the best of us from time to time. We have to start in the pit lane and show everybody how fast we really are. But we'll check you next week, Ian. Have a good one.
Cheers. Take care. Bye bye.
And that right there was Ian Joyner, who may not have grabbed a checkered flag as a winner in this race, but certainly gave us a real intriguing storyline to follow all throughout the race that we just saw here. Josh, a race which is dominated by a newcomer and also riddled with really compelling strategy. I gotta say, a pretty good race. Of all of the races for you to be in the commentary booth for, I think this was probably the best one, because of the races we've had thus far this season, that may have been the most entertaining in my book. Maybe I'm just a nerd, I like the strategy or what, but that was a really fun race to see.
Yeah, absolutely, Ron. You know, it's been a bit of a long time coming here. We started producing these things together. Man, it's got to be 2 or 3 years ago now, and then eventually, end up a driver in the cars and actually won a S2 championship, and now back behind the production controls and actually commentating on one of these races. So I've come full circle here, and to be honest, if I couldn't be out in the car, this is definitely the best seat in the house other than in the car right here. So my pleasure to be out here commentating and producing the race today. My pleasure to do it, and it was a great race here around Oulton Park. Looking forward to next week.
And next week at Thruxton is going to be a heck of a lot of fun. The Formula Vs are also going to be running there as well. So talk about a real compelling bout of action that we're going to be having in 1 week's time here exclusively on Slow Motion Broadcasting. Fingers crossed I'm going to be a part of that. Full transparency, folks. I'm trying to see if I'll actually be on the iRacing Daytona 24 broadcast that weekend. So if you see me next week, I'll be really looking forward to that racing action. If not, I'll still probably be tuning in even if I'm on the air as that's going on. But this was one part of all of the action that we have here on SMB, because to be honest, folks, the action does not stop, and I'm sure you guys probably don't want to stop either. We've got Wild Card Wednesdays here on Slow Motion Broadcasting, the action from the Ray Esports Club Racing League and Group 3 and their third round coming up this weekend, and also the Sim Racers Group Intermediate F4 Championship. You can catch all of that action every single Wednesday here on Slow Motion Broadcasting. 2 shows, 2 crews, and a whole lot of racing action. That's just on Wednesdays, folks. Then come time for the weekend, we've got the brilliant action from the Weekend Warrior series of Formula Vs. You can catch them every single Saturday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The Sundays featuring the Super Sunday action with the Formula Fords and the Spec Racer Fords making their appearance in the exact same day. And Josh, I can see your car right there in the shot that you've got with the Sundays right there. May have to go to the body shop with the amount of scrapes on the front of that thing, but still, we got the Spec Racer Fords running later on today at Zolder, and that's going to be a really fun race. Josh and I will be on the call for that, and we hope you can all tune into that broadcast set to begin in less than an hour's time. But as for this broadcast for round number 4, the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors, I think that will just about do it. And so for myself, Ron Maunz, Joshua Wilkie joining me working the comms and the cams on today's broadcast, I say thank you all so very much for watching. Have a great rest of your day, and stay tuned for the Spec Racer Fords coming up in about an hour's time. Take care, everybody.
Bye.